Hi guys, so I'm defining behaviorism through the metaphor of hiking today. So the theory that behaviorism is a theory that human and animal behavior can be explained in terms of conditioning without appeal to thoughts or feelings. So just in the metaphor of hiking as like a personal reference, I'm originally from Fairfield, Connecticut, so there weren't too many nearby hiking trails that I grew up around. It was like an hour and a half to travel to one. So I grew up walking around like lakes and beaches, and like that wasn't really that intense of trails. But coming to New Hampshire for school, it exposed me to like obviously greater levels. Like on the weekends, me and my friends would go hiking all the time, and I just really wasn't used to it. I guess I wanted to start with the role of a parent. So, I mean, just like any other kid, when you first try something and you're first starting something, your parents are going to be like, make sure you do this, this, and this, all to keep you safe. So I guess I included the role of a parent in using safety precautions, and like giving guidelines that will help keep everyone safe. So I said like bringing water, using the proper footwear, knowing the difficulty of the trail beforehand, and all these factors like neutralize or are able to neutralize the unknown factors that can happen, like you get caught in the rain or someone gets hurt on the trail. So I jumped into role of assessment next. So I said, obviously, the level of difficulty for every hiking trail is going to vary. So starting at the beginner level, I would say it was trails like around my house. And that was just a little uphill, not too much, just walking around and in the woods and just walking around bodies of water. There wasn't really any like harder aspect involved. But the intermediate and difficult level can occur when I move up to New Hampshire and there's greater elevation and steepness and greater challenge to those trails that I wasn't used to. And it was my first time being exposed. But these challenges can act as an assessment when you safely make it through from beginning to end, which with whatever level that you start at. So upon entering any hiking trail, the role of community automatically plays into key because different trails are going to embody different traits and challenges on their own. Hikers are going to take the trails that before even entering, it has a sign that says like everything about the trail, maybe a map and the easier routes and the hard routes, whether you're going on your own or with your family, and it's already tested to know what risks there are. So the community can guide you based on which trail you take. And I just feel like it gives you like almost a prerequisite of what you're getting involved in. And that varies based on location. So what I grew up with compared to what somebody else grew up with. But it's giving you all the same type of learning experience because you're all entering knowing the same thing. And I guess that was my take in the part of classical conditioning. So I said the role of school and a teacher, obviously, with everyone growing up in a different community, and me coming from Connecticut, I know I've been using myself as like a target point mostly. Everything is being outdoors. Each individual is going to be exposed to a different environment, and it's our job to best accommodate what they've already attempted or experienced by challenging them appropriately. And when it comes to classical conditioning, you want all of the subjects to be exposed, if anything, to the same thing before entering the hardest challenge. So when it comes to being the role of a school and teacher, you think of it as like you give them formative assignments to lead them up to this big test. So you give them the beginner trails and test them with the intermediates, all in preparation to get them to the difficult trails and the tests that we want. My biggest portion of this was the impact of social injustice and equity. It's important to acknowledge each individual's terms of success because you know that even giving them the same type of trail, same knowledge, and entering it before, there's still going to be different and variations of responses. Based on what an individual has already been exposed to prior, and knowing that there has been differences across environments, it's the only way we're going to use that knowledge to usefully make a good assessment for them. And to give them a challenge is going to like best push them, but not push them too hard out of their comfort zone. So working their way from beginner to intermediate, like I was saying before. And this is where I related it to Watson when he said, if a different wavelength is not a factor in adjustment, he wishes to know what difference in intensity will serve as a basis for response and whether that same difference will suffice throughout the spectrum. So that just means like you're finding a compatible starting point to all get each individual to amount to the same preparation for the ending point, because you want that same response in classical conditioning. You hope to create a baseline that no matter what you do, you want that same response. So it's all about the lead up, and I just thought that was a very important part of the impact of social justice and equity. And I watched the video on equality versus equity, and it becomes a huge role when talking about classical conditioning. It speaks to fairness, but all while being confined in the same boundaries and environment. So when you're teaching and your kids are finally exposed and ready for that same level of difficulty and can accomplish like climbing the highest mountain, that means like your role of assessment has better prepared them to get to the same ending point. So my last note was stating what Skinner had said about operant conditioning. I said obviously he stated operant conditioning through which variations in the behavior of the individual are selected by features of the environment that are not stable enough to play any part in evolution. And we have to realize that when we send our kids and our students, there's going to be failures, there's going to be injuries, and some may not return and some may not get back up again and try. But this is where the community portion plays to role so much, is that when people test the trails and make sure that they're safe and give them everything they need to know before, and when their parents prep them for the worst, this can address the certain kind of consequences that can like reinforce like natural selection. It like best prepares them in every way. So my PowerPoint that I posted is just going to guide you basically through what I was saying. Found it kind of hard to find a metaphor, so hopefully that made sense.